Good morning, everyone. As people are still hopping on here, my name is Tiffany Wenrick. I'm the co-chair of our education committee, and I'm going to go through a little bit of light housekeeping before we go ahead and get started. First, you have two ways to join in and listen to our webinar today. You can join with computer audio. You'll see that in the bar at the bottom of your screen when you join, or you can dial in. If it's easier for you to have a phone connection, you will see instructions there as well in the audio pane. You can submit questions anytime using the Q&A tab on the control panel as well. Please send questions over. We want to know, what you want to know as well. And just as an FYI, this is being recorded and will be available to our members and attendees on our website. We do have a code of conduct here at the League of Railway Women. We are an inclusive organization, and we expect everyone to treat everyone else with respect. There are some, examples of behavior here you'll see. I know we'll have, none of that today, but in case we do, there is an email address down here. You can shoot us a note at webinars@railwaywomen.com if you encounter any issues. Always want to thank our corporate partners. Our corporate partners allow us to do things like today's webinar. They support us. They support women advancing and growing in the rail industry. We can't thank them enough. Being a corporate partner means you get, access to this group of talented women, their thoughts, their networks, and all that. So if you are a part of one of these companies and you didn't know that you were a corporate member, reach out. Make sure you have access to everything. And if you are part of an organization that's interested, please, again, reach out to us. We love our corporate partners and, again, can't thank them enough. That is enough for me. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Denise Williams. She's the chair of our awards committee, and she's going to tell everyone a little bit more about our Women of the Year award and how we select the winner.
Good morning. I'm Denise Williams, Project Manager Industrial Development with CPKC. Currently serve as the LRW Awards Committee Chair and lead the LRW Railway Women of the Year Advisory Committee. The advisory committee is comprised of previous Women of the Year award recipients who commit to a 2-year term and serve on the committee. They assist the awards chair with the review and finalization selection of the Woman of the Year recipient. Our current advisory committee includes Jean Savage, CEO and President of Trinity Industries, Stephanie Wiggins, CEO of Metro, and Pam Arpin, VP and Chief Information Officer of CPKC, all former recipients. The Railway Woman of the Year Award has been co-sponsored by Progressive Railroading and has recognized women's leadership contributions to North American rail industry since 1997. The 2023 Railway Woman of the Year recipient is currently President and CEO of MXV Rail, the world's premier rail research advisor. Since taking her role in 2021, she has spearheaded the company's transformation from TTCI to MXV Rail. She has been a part of that organization, which is a subsidiary of the Association of American Railroads since 2000, advancing from a student intern and to a research engineer, and then later assuming the role of vice president and CFO. She leads the MXV Rail team with the advantage of 20 years of service and experience in our industry. She's a mechanical engineer by training, holds an MBA, and was recognized by Progressive Railroading as a rising star. She was the inaugural candidate for the MXV Railroad Exchange Program, spending a year with BNSF Railways headquarters, visiting as a professional. In addition, she serves on a number of community and industry boards. It is my honor to introduce Ms. Kari Gonzales and Christine Khalil, who will be our moderator extraordinaire for the Q&A session today. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Denise. So actually, maybe an interesting fact about Kari before we get starting, for those of you who don't know, it's actually thanks to Kari that we have webinars like this one today. So during her time as a director at large with the LRW, she actually initiated the education committee and started the chair position. So I'm going to go ahead with the question and answer portion. But before we do, at any time, all our audience members can ask a question in the chat, and you can submit that there. And we will leave time at the end to answer as many of those questions as possible. So maybe we'll start off with an easy question, Kari. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the rail industry, what interested you in the industry?
Perfect. Well, thank you for starting with an easy question this morning. I am still mid-transition between dance mom and CEO this morning. I was at a dance competition with my daughter all weekend. Let's say teenage daughters that are dancers, they can be slightly emotional at times. So it was an interesting weekend. I may still have glitter on me. I don't know. There's a spray that we use. Anyway, thank you for starting with an easy question. For many of you that know me, or some of you that don't, I actually did not intend to get a career in the rail industry, and I had zero intention on coming back to my hometown and finding a lifelong career. So for me, I was going to school for mechanical, actually, I was going to school for chemical engineering at the time, and really on the verge of like stopping my engineering curriculum. I just was not enjoying my studies, and I was away from home, and I'm a big family kid. And so I came home for the summer, and I love basketball. And everyone laughs at me when I say I love basketball because like I'm this big in person. I think I saw Lisa's name on here, and when Lisa and I stand next to each other, it is quite a quite amusing picture, or challenging picture, I should say. Needs step stools. Anyway, I came home to coach basketball and ended up having a conversation with one of the dads for one of the girls that I was coaching. And he said, well, I have a friend, I think they do internships. And I said, sign me up. I need something to do this summer. And so that really opened the door to an internship with TTCI at the time. What was great about it is that I really enjoyed the summer and really found a passion for mechanical engineering and railroading. When I went back to school, I changed my major from chemical engineering to mechanical engineering. Ended up going from, I think I was like a 2.9 GPA student going, my freshman and sophomore year. When I went back, I was like a 3.5, 3.7 with 20 plus credit hours. So really kind of demonstrates that when you find something that you like, that you're more willing to put in the work. And really railroading has been that for me over the course of my career. I really did fall in love with everything rail that summer. And I am still big fan of the industry and the work that we do at MXV Rail.
Awesome. That's interesting to hear as a fellow mechanical engineer too in the industry. And talking about that, I guess sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find mentors in the field. Do you have any specific mentors over your career that have played an important role or had a very important impact on your career?
So this was an interesting question for me when you threw this one to me, because I had to do a little bit of research, right? Because I have had so many people that have been influential in my life, and really trying to decide if that was really through mentorship or coaching. And what I found out is there's a difference, right? There's some overlap between mentoring and coaching, but I'm going to switch this one more from mentoring to coaching, because I feel like I haven't really like engaged in specific mentorship activities, but I've had some phenomenal coaches over the course of my life, frankly. And I think that really started even with my high school basketball coach. He was a driver and had really high expectations. And I really think he taught me a lot about not only working hard, but also managing difficult situations. You go into a high school environment coming in, from middle school, and, our middle school team was very good, and with expectations that you want to play varsity, and things don't always happen that way, and just struggles to recognize that your skill sets need to grow. I think that that's one thing that, as in life, you are talented in different areas, but your talent can only take you so far. And so he really taught me about how you take your talent and combine that with hard work to really be successful and overcome some challenging situations and frankly hard conversations. Another one that I think was super influential in my career was that time I spent at BNSF. Byron Dickey was the head of the mechanical team for wayside inspection systems. And he really pushed me to learn more about railroading in a way that was engaging. So he was a difficult one too. It's interesting. I've had a lot of people that really challenge me to up my game. So I feel like he was really influential and helpful. And then as I've moved into this role, I've had some phenomenal people. This was not something the role from CFO to CEO was not expected for me in the time frame that it happened. And so it took a lot of people to help me get the skills that I needed to be successful in this role. So, Ian Jeffries is the president of AAR and chairman of the MXV Rail board, and he's been really helpful to help me understand the industry at a level that I needed to. And then I would highly encourage people that are trying to grow skills or fill and kind of figure out gaps in skills to get some real coaching. Like there are professional coaches out there. I have been engaged with one for the past 2 years, and she has helped me tremendously. So I do think that that's important. And if you do recognize that you want to grow your career, finding somebody that's going to be able to coach you through those challenges, and it's probably somebody external from your organization. I think that was the biggest difference that I found with mentoring. A lot of the time that's internal and helping you understand the internal ongoings and how to navigate situations internally versus coaching that's really coming outside of your organization with no bias about the situational aspects of what you're doing. So I do encourage you, if you are looking to grow in spaces, to figure out how you can get some external coaching. And it takes a bit of work to find somebody. I think I interviewed 4 different coaches and found one that was right for me. But it was definitely worth the time investment and monetary investment for me.
Interesting. So you touched a little bit on this in your discussion of mentors and how sometimes they can help us to, how do we handle sort of challenging situations or difficult conversations? So in your current role now, what do you think are the most challenging aspects of that job, and how do you handle those?
Now we're getting to the harder questions. Dun, dun, dun. So you do encounter a lot of challenging situations, and I think the ones that are the hardest to work through are people-based situations, right? I mean, people will bring your brightest days, and sometimes they're your hardest days. And I think being able to approach all the situations with good intentions is probably the best starting point. I think the other piece is just being able to plan out those difficult conversations. I actually had one of my colleagues from a different industry, and actually she spoke and did a webinar for LRW, Kari. She actually just wrote a book too, if anybody that saw her speak for LRW is interested. Ownership Mindset, great content in there. But she came and did a training for us at MXV Rail for our leadership team, and it was specific on having difficult conversations. And I think, people's natural tendency is to avoid. And that never ends well because it just keeps building, and then there's lots of emotion around it. I think, but the great takeaways that we had from that training, and something I, really reinforce with everybody, including myself, is to plan for those conversations. That's the best way to make sure that they go as well as they can go. And when I say plan, it's not only planning for the outcome that you want and expect to happen, but planning for the outcomes that you don't see coming. I think those are, getting caught off guard in a difficult conversation is never a great place, because people have a tendency to lean back into emotion, and emotional conversations are never the way to go. So I think that, making sure that you're prepared for those, and again, recognizing that distinction between your emotional connection to people and your responsibility to an organization, whether that be the company you're working for today, your kids' sports teams. You have to make the right choice, even sometimes if it's hard.
Excellent. So you touched a little bit on this too, that obviously you have a big role. And I think we heard in your biography that you're involved in a lot of different organizations in your community and within the industry. You talked about being a mom and going to dance competitions. I guess the question everyone wants to know is, how do you do it all? How do you find balance in all of those activities?
And my number one answer for that is I don't. And I am a perfectionist with super high expectations at heart. And I think that that's been one of the most challenging things to overcome through this transition. This job is definitely more demanding than anything I've experienced before. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son that are active in sports and other school events. And, there are a lot of balls that are consistently in the air. I think one thing that I have learned through this experience is that failures happen. And the best thing that we can do is not beat ourselves up about them, but learn from them. And I always poke at the word balance when I hear it, because in all honesty, in today's world, I don't think there is balance anymore. We don't get the luxury of turning off phones or disconnecting very often. And so I've really transitioned my thought process from balance to really priority presence and integration. So you will frequently see me at dance competitions in the back row working on some emails because my daughter is not dancing at the moment. She is fed and in a good mood. And there's sometimes when I'm stepping away from between innings to take a phone call, but I really allow myself a lot of grace in that regard because I do know that I have a lot of responsibilities. And when I need to take a step back and think about all those things that I'm committed to, it's really about, am I giving the appropriate priority to the things that are most meaningful in my life? And today I'm happy to say that I feel like I do. And I'm not perfect all the time. There's times when I'm not, and my dad is very quick to remind me when he feels like I'm a little out of sorts on the family side. But that's another really good point, having people that are willing to kind of check your priorities and help you make sure you're really keeping aligned with what your core values are in that regard. So answer to that, I don't do it all. I fail often. I give myself a lot of grace when I do, but I learn from it. And work-life integration is the new balance.
That's nice to hear that it's not just me struggling on that front, trying to balance everything.
Yeah, there's always going to be balls that are going to drop. Just don't drop the important ones.
I guess looking back on your whole career and all the different involvement you've had in different committees within the rail industry, what do you think is your greatest contribution to the rail industry so far, and why would you think that's your greatest contribution?
Yeah, that one is an interesting one just because of the jobs that, like, the variability in the jobs that I've had growing up at MXV Rail. Kind of thinking back on my days as a mechanical engineer, which I spent 10 or 12 years in our engineering department doing research on behalf of the industry. And I feel like I made some really good technical progressions. And so from that side, I would say some of the work that I did with laser-based ultrasound, ooh, it was so fun. I'm like, one of these days I'm going to get back into that lab and shoot lasers again. But that was I think it was a groundbreaking technology. Not that to say that it, ever ended up in full implementation, but I do think it served as the groundwork for a lot of the inspections that are happening in a autonomous way nowadays. So I think there were some good advancements there. When I think about more recent times and contributions, it really is this transition that we've been able to make as an organization. MXV Rail has been I'll say a core asset for the industry in terms of technology progression and finding ways to make the industry safer, more reliable, more efficient, and now more sustainable. And so being able to ensure that the future of MXV Rail was secure and that we could continue to provide the services necessary to move the industry forward was, to me, it will probably go down as a big contribution to the industry, because we really are an important place for the industry to interact and continue to progress those goals in safety and reliability.
So you've accomplished a lot already. Is there anything you feel like you haven't yet accomplished that's on your future goal list that you like to work towards?
Yeah, there are always things to do, right? So I would say, coming out of this transition as a business, we're kind of learning how we want to operate as MXV Rail. I think there is a lot of potential to do more. The industry is changing rapidly, whether that be on the regulatory environment or the technology side. So I do think that there's going to be some capabilities, and we need to continue to evolve the business. One of the things that was fantastic about this transition is it really pushed our organization outside of our comfort zone. We had kind of lived warm and cozy for 40 years, and this really upended the business and the way we think about the business. And so really maximizing the potential of our team members and our contributions to the industry is on the forefront of my mind right now. I would say that's kind of on the business side. I would say a combination of business and personal. If you ever hear me speak, I am super passionate about getting people into rail. And so I'd really like to be able to do more around recruiting phenomenal people, whether it be into our organization or just into rail in general. And really getting people excited about our industry and the future of our industry. And on top of that, just, you mentioned that I do like to do a lot with the community. I really have enjoyed being able to tell our story, the MXV Rail story, and really teaching people that things are possible if you work hard and have a vision for moving things forward. So I'm going to try and invest a bit more time to get out there and tell that story, talk to young kids about being an engineer. You talk to little girls about being a mom and being a CEO, and just really getting out there and being able to encourage people to be their best and not let small barriers get in their way of long-term success. So that's more like, that's a combination of I would say the business and the personal side. And then I think the last thing that I really want to focus on, or that I am going to be focusing on, is just enjoying the journey. That's always, I'm a very fast-paced, low patience for a lot of the time individual. So I'm trying to just kind of enjoy where I'm at before I'm taking on the next big thing, and just making sure that I'm keeping that integration and prioritization at the right levels.
Sounds awesome. You talked a lot about trying to reach out and get more people involved within the rail industry, and specifically women too within engineering or railroading. Why do you think it's important to, I guess, promote and cultivate women within the industry?
Well, in general, I think everybody knows that when you build more diverse perspectives, things just generally go well. But I'll kind of, and this is funny, because I've had a couple of discussions or interviews, and one of the things that a lot of the people are asking, and actually was hiring for a new position, one thing that kept coming up was the number of women on the executive team at MXV Rail. And if you look at our webpage, there's 7 of the 10 top executives at MXV Rail that are women. And I think it's important because I just look at how successful we've been as an organization by incorporating different voices in different places. A lot of the time there are great women that are out there, and maybe they're just a little bit passive about their vocalization of their desire to do a role. And I think it's really important that we're inviting those women into the conversation. And one of the questions that I got, and not for this particular interview, but recently, was just, did you build that team intentionally? And I will tell you, I did not go out and say, I'm going to hire a woman for this role in our organization. But what I did do is be more intentional about how we were advertising the role. We've done a lot of culture work at MXV Real to make sure that we're building a diverse and inclusive environment that will allow people to come in and be comfortable with, with integrating their lives. And so I think one of the things that I've learned is that the power of invitation is huge. And sometimes you don't realize that you have to ask people to consider it or think about it. But every time that I've done that, I've been super pleased with the response and frankly, the results. I have one of the ladies on my team right now that's in a role that was probably way outside of what she ever expected to be doing, but I recognize that she had the skill and the ability to learn and work hard. And I feel like she's just exceeding my expectations on all levels right now. And that really was a result of saying, I think you can do this. You want to try. So as you guys are out there thinking about how you want to progress your careers, number one, when you hear those invites, take advantage of them. But number two, making sure that you're making those invites, right? Bringing people along is super important. I was able to have a lot of, those coaches and mentors in my career that gave me the opportunity, and because they saw that I had the capability, and making sure that we make those invites is really important to continue to get women in rail and also getting them to stay in rail because they can progress their careers and be comfortable with it.
So talking about taking chances, I guess, outside of your comfort zone and going towards that, I have to know, how does a mechanical engineer end up in a CFO position? What was that transition like there?
Oh man, I'm so happy you asked that, because that was, of all of the transitions, that was the most frightening one. And so, I was happily moving along, being a mechanical engineer, writing papers. I was in my zone. And then I started getting some people leadership responsibilities, and I like that. I feel like very early on in my life, I've always been one to want to take on the responsibility of leadership. And so I got that opportunity. And then as I started doing that, people recognized that I had skill in that area and they wanted to further develop it. And I got the recommendation, like, you should probably go and get your MBA. And I was like, okay. And so I started my MBA when my son was probably less than a year old. And I was still doing mostly engineering, and I was taking, one or two classes at a time to make sure I could manage that workload and still contribute in the areas that I needed to. And I just hated it. I was like, nope, not for me. So I kind of stopped doing my MBA courses. And then I don't know, probably around 2016-ish, my predecessor came and she was like, hey, have you finished that MBA? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, it'd probably be a really good idea for you to kind of get back on that. And so I did. And fortunately, between those two times, my job had changed a lot. I was more into the business aspects, and I had more people responsibilities. I had more program management responsibilities. And so when I re-engaged with the program, I was like, oh, yeah, this is totally applicable. Like, I loved it. And again, just kind of timing. And so when I finished that MBA, I got moved into the business office. And I will tell you, these people are crazy. As an engineer, I was very comfortable working with men, right? I mean, for engineering, we generally work with a bunch of guys. And I didn't work with a whole lot of women, and I was super afraid. I mean, moving into the business office where 95% of the business office was women, I was like, oh, they're not going to like me. There's a lot of problems going on in my mind. But looking back on the experience, I'm like, it was phenomenal. I learned so much, particularly how to build relationships with women, because it is different, right? And just the power of women, man, like I have some hard workers in the business office, and I had to learn HR and lots of different things. And looking back on it now, it was really critical for me to spend that time as CFO. And I was in that role for 3 years. In all honesty, I probably could have finished out my career there and been super happy. Like I really loved what I was doing. When the CEO responsibility came up as an opportunity, I was a little sad to leave that role behind, because I really did enjoy it after the very like I'm super afraid of this role start. So I just want to thank all of the ladies and team members in the business office, because they really did help me make that transition in a great way. And they were great teachers, right? It wasn't like my natural background, but they were amazing. And a few of those ladies are now on my executive team and still phenomenal, and just a great support network. So it was definitely a scary time for me, but happy that I got the opportunity to experience it.
What an amazing story. A very interesting transition there. Before we get started, maybe with some of the audience questions, I know that before the webinar, you had received some questions on your socials too.
I
If you
did.
want to go into some of those.
Well, I think we kind of talked about the how do you do it all segment, so I'll skip over that one. But I think one of the fun ones that I got was, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? And actually, I was happy that you guys showed that headshot that you started out with, because you'll notice in that headshot there's the Hermione time turner on it. I'm a big Harry Potter fan nerd, I know. But I was like, if I could be in like multiple places at one time, that would be good. But knowing that that's not a reality, I really try and change this question into some of the superpowers that I feel like I've developed, because I think they're important for everybody that is busy and has competing priorities. So I think the skills and superpowers that I've developed over time, number one is discipline. I am one of those people that when I say I'm going to do something, it shall happen. So making sure that I'm really selective about the things I'm committing to, because it can be a detriment as well as a superpower, if we continue to do something without really like, hey, is this really what I should be doing? So I do think discipline is really important, and making sure that when you're committing to something, following through. Man, something I have learned is reflection, and that is hard. Being, a leader of leaders is challenging. I mentioned that I've always been kind of a coach, and understanding when it's time to coach and when it's time to not, and that you don't always do everything right. I mean, over the course of this transition, I have had many points of, well, that didn't go the way I wanted it to. But being able to really reflect, and be in a place where you're giving yourself grace, because you went in there with good intentions, but also knowing that that can't happen again is a really big superpower that I've really grown the reflection muscle over the past 2 to 3 years. And then I think my last superpower that I've built, and that's over time, is just being coachable. Still today, it's important to make sure that you're hearing feedback and not turning it into everybody hates me and I'm a failure. More, hey, this person really wants me to get better, and making sure that you can hear that and turn it into positive outcomes. So coachability is something for everybody, and being able to take feedback in a positive way, even sometimes when it's hard. I got some tough feedback recently, and it hurt my little heart, but I'm working on it, and you just keep moving forward. And again, when you start everything with good intentions, I think that's it's a really solid foundation for both the reflection and coachability pieces. So I'm still working on developing some other superpowers. Hopefully we'll be able to have another conversation that I'll expand on some of those. But for right now, I feel like those are the discipline, reflection, and coachability are the superpowers I've developed over a lifelong commitment to being a better human.
Thank you. Very interesting. So we have some questions now starting to come up in our chat. And I can start with this one. This one is interesting, actually. So you talked about going from like a technical background, being a mechanical engineer, and going into a more administrative business role. And you shared, some of what you did to do that. What about somebody who's in the opposite position? So somebody, say, who's in more of an administrative role, but who would like to advance within their company, or learn more technical information. So what could they do, or how could they go about learning that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I think about both those transitions, going from technical to business and business to technical, I think the number one thing that you need to do is be inquisitive, making sure that you're asking questions. I will tell you that in my experience, I've never really received a dumb question, right? I think people are very concerned that I'm not going to look smart if I ask this question. It's more disappointing when you find out, 6 months down the road that somebody didn't ask a question and working under assumptions. So being inquisitive is going to be super important. And no, I think building yourself up as an expert, so whatever that technical field is, really committing time to learning it and understanding it. And that may mean going back to school. That may mean asking for some technical mentorship, which is a good thing. I had lots of people in this, and that's a great thing about this industry. People are so happy to share knowledge. I mean, you could get some people on the phone and you could spend hours talking about their one particular area of expertise. So building the network around that technical skill you're trying to learn is also very important. But all things are possible, right? I mean, working hard and committing the time to it and being disciplined and making sure even when it's a little bit tough, you're reminding yourself of the end outcome that you want is really the way to achieve any goal. So I would say surround yourself with experts, put in the work, and call us if you need us. We're here for you.
Love that question. And, that makes me think internally too. I've actually had, employees who worked in HR who have reached out and asked for, hey, would you like to be sort of a technical mentor? Can you bring me out in the field and show me what it is? Because I'm interested in applying on these roles, but maybe too scared to do it without actually seeing what it is. And I think that kind of goes to the next question too, which would say, you talked about looking for mentors within your company, but also looking for coaches outside of your organization. Do you have maybe some resources or places that people could go looking for those external coaches?
Certainly. And there are a lot out there. And so let's start with everybody is not always ready for coaching. I think the first thing that you can do, and I think there's a couple of like online resources that you can go to that really assess whether or not you're ready for coaching. Because if you're not ready, you're not going to get anything from it, and it's going to be a waste of your time and money. So number one, make sure that you are prepared for coaching. Number two, so here's a couple of things that I did when this role came up, and I immediately raised my hand and I was like, hey, I've never been a CEO before. So I'm going to need a little help. So I did reach out to my network of people, including some of the people that are on this call, to say, who do you know? Who do you know that does coaching? And I probably got 5 or 6 different people that they had worked with or knew somebody had worked with them. I did do a quick Google search for people that were in the Colorado area. And then as I started to explore those, I really took a step away from the individual and said, okay, what do I need out of this? And so I specifically wrote down really like what I wanted to get out of the coaching experience. That really helped me to narrow down the candidates that I had for coaches. Once I did that, I scheduled, like you do these initial interviews with the coaches. And if they don't do that for free, they probably are not somebody that you want to work with. They should do kind of initial assessment so you can get a flavor for what their philosophy in coaching is, and how they would see helping you. Now, one thing that I did learn through the process that I'll share with you, there are two distinct types of coaching. I would say there's the more passive coaching where you're doing a lot of the talking and they're doing some guiding, that's a little less direct. And then on the flip side, I would say there's more of an active coaching model, that really helps you work through some specific problems. So be on the lookout for the different types of coaches, and the one that really is going to be better aligned with that list of needs that you put together. Because it's really important that you find the right type of coach for the things that you're trying to address, through that relationship.
Very interesting. Just taking a look here, see if we have any additional questions. So if anybody has a question, please feel free to submit it in the chat. We will ask those. While we wait maybe on other questions, do you have maybe some questions that you get often in interviews? Like what's your least favorite question to answer, or?
Oh, man, I'm usually pretty open for all the questions. I would say one question that I get, I'm trying to think of a question that I get all the time. I don't know if I have one that we haven't like touched on. I think the one that I get the most often is like, how do you do it all? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you how I do it all. I don't. I think, man, I'm trying to think of anything else that I get frequently, and or one that I don't like to answer that I'm like, why did I ask? I don't think I have any. That's interesting.
Right.
Well, I do have one. I do have one that I get. I think one of the ones that's like, what's your biggest lesson learned? That is a very frequent question that I get, and that one is a little bit difficult because that changes constantly. I think the example that I'll use today is in kind of getting back through this transition, understanding like how much emotion people put in and attached to what you're saying, and really the power of words. It's really important as you're growing in a role, or you're growing into leadership, or you're wanting to, get into the executive levels. You have to be very thoughtful about the words that you use. And the example that I will use today, just to demonstrate how impactful it can be. As we first started to go through the transition, I worked with the team to put together kind of what our strategic vision was for the transition. And one of the things that was really important to the organization was that we weren't going to build things we didn't need, or we weren't going to buy things we didn't need, because we had the opportunity to really build the things we needed to be more efficient with our overhead and our spending. And I got into an all-employee meeting, and I said something along the lines of, we're going to be lean and mean. What do you think that might have turned into? Oh my God, everybody's getting fired. I was like, oh, well, that one missed the mark. And again, so for me, I went in there thinking, we're going to be like focused, and we're going to focus our spending and only buy what we need. And it turned into I'm firing everybody. So just making sure that, again, that when you're having these big meetings, being really thoughtful about word choice, and understanding the power of your words, so that you're not having to scramble and say what I meant was.
It's a very valid point. Yeah. We got another question here actually about, we talked about mentoring a bit, but maybe we skipped over this part a bit quick. So have you had a mentor or mentee, the other sense too, that we didn't talk much about? And, what comments, like how would you compare the relationship between mentor mentee compared to coaching that we went more into detail about?
Yeah. So I will say that of the mentors that I've had, I had one, his name is Mike Shear. He was our VP operations at MXV Rail. And he, so I transitioned out of our engineering department into operations. And that meant I was working with a different type of individual, right? It went from working with a bunch of engineers to working with all of our track crew and our locomotive engineers. And so what I got out of that mentorship was really a better understanding of communication um, and how you interact differently. So and presence matters, right? Making sure that people understand that their value in the organization and being able to reinforce those messages. So I would say that he taught me, right, a very specific skill and modeled the way for me, right? It wasn't like it was like a whiteboard session every 2 weeks. This guy just brought me along, right? When he was having hard conversations or he was doing planning, he brought me into that process. So I had visibility into it. And then he would give me little assignments in that space and say, okay, like go execute on this one and then give me feedback. So in that sense, that's how I see really effective mentorships happening. When somebody has experience that you need insight and you need to get a gap filled. On the flip side, I would say from a coaching side, to me, yeah, I talked about the difference between more of a passive and active coach. Most recently, I needed more active coaching, right? Help me through this situation. And so the coach that I have now has really helped me to be cognizant of language and even about the language I use around myself. So one thing that I learned through this coaching was how I use my words, even just like how I'm looking at myself and how I'm judging myself. And one in particular was around empathy. And it's always interesting because growing up, my mom used to always talk to me about being more empathetic. And so I always really thought that I had this shortfall because sometimes I don't connect all the time. And so working with this coach, it wasn't really that I didn't have empathy. I really had to just reframe like how empathy shows up for me. And how I could improve some of those situations where that my mom would see, and because she was right, how I could reframe those and work it. Not that I didn't care or that I didn't connect, but that I needed to be able to put some words around how I was connecting. So I would say that's an example of that coaching element, that you kind of recognize this area that you need to shore up and strengthen, and how are some ways that you can do that.
Very interesting. So as somebody who has, say, 20 years experience in the rail industry, what advice would you give to women who are just starting out in the industry?
Oh, maybe that's a question I get that I don't know how to answer. No, I mean, number one, this industry is amazing. And to your point about your HR friend that wanted to move into a more technical role, I think sky's the limit in this industry. I really do feel like if you are willing to learn and you're willing to put the work in, you can pretty much do anything you want in this industry. It is very easy to it's a very fluid industry. So you can move from, we see it, you can move from company to company, you can move from role to role. I really do believe that there is just so much to learn about the industry. And when you find something that you're passionate about, people are very willing to teach you about it and help you move along in that space. And I am really pleased to see that we are starting to get more women in the C-suite. And I think that that's impactful because it helps us see that it's possible now, right? I think before, thinking about a female CEO was like, yeah, I can never do that because no one's ever done it before. Now you have two. So I think some glass ceilings have been broken. I think the pathways are there, the people are there to support you along those pathways. It's really about building your network, and that's one of the things I'm most thankful for in LRW. I mean, I see the women that are in this organization, and it just warms my heart every time I get to go to an event and I see more women, but I get to see my women and the ones that have worked so hard to bring the organization along. And I will tell you that there are probably some of my biggest cheerleaders in LRW and on this call today. And leadership is sometimes lonely, and having those people that give you a little bit of cheer, even when they didn't even know you needed it, is really, really awesome. So build your network and get your circle, and don't be afraid to lean on that circle when you need it.
Awesome. And I think that kind of fits with the next question we got too, which is sort of a two-part question, which is, what do you think are the biggest challenges our industry will face in the next 3 to 5 years? And what advice would you give others who are interested in making a positive impact to the industry?
From a challenges perspective, I think we're seeing it, right? I think the regulatory environment has been a little bit tough on our industry, and figuring out how we move beyond that is going to be something that we all need to work on. And a lot of that means that we need to be messengers of the other side of the story. I think that it's been a struggle post East Palestine to be able to have people think of rail in a positive way, and each one of us has a part in that, right? We know our people, we know our stories, and being able to talk about those stories even in your communities and even with your family when they're like, what's going on with the rail industry, they're terrible. I'm like, let's take a moment here, let me pull out my 10-page white paper. Just kidding. Don't do that. My family would kill me if I brought out let me do a presentation for you. Kidding. But really being advocates for the industry to help get beyond it, and bringing new ideas forward. I think the industry is ready for change. I think that being able to express some new ideas, whether that be ways to be more efficient or new technology, I think everybody is very willing to explore those things, and helping to move those forward in a way that you can is always a positive thing. I think that kind of goes into the second piece of it, right? Being a change agent in our industry really means that you're not staying quiet when you see something. Like, figure out how you bring the best ideas, and figure out how you could build a circle around you to bring those ideas forward. So be an advocate. Don't be afraid to say how awesome rail is, because the more we say how awesome rail is, I think the more people that'll want to be a part of it. Oh, I think your mic went out, or you're muted. We can't ever go through anything without IT difficulties nowadays. So I totally feel for you.
I'm going to go ahead and hop in for Christine here, Kari. I've been lurking in the background, really enjoying everything. And, I've heard you speak several times, but every time, there's always something new and just really great to take away. So I appreciate that. Did you have anything that you wanted to share with us, just to wrap things up?
I think the one thing, anytime anybody gives me a little bit of free space to talk, I always just want to talk about the amazing staff that we have at MXV Rail. It's been phenomenal to see the transition that we've made. not only, physically moving from one facility to another, but really the transformation that the company made in terms of people and culture. I just get so excited to see all of our staff really bought into the organization, and that takes a lot. Culture change is hard, and not to say that the days of TTCI were horrendous. I mean, there are some great things that happened, but when you have a transition of the magnitude that we had, there has to be culture change around it. We had a lot of new people coming in, a lot of new people into new roles, me being one of those. So really looking at the culture that we had versus the culture that we needed to make sure that the company succeeded long term was really important. And that culture was built by the amazing team members that we have. So I always have to say thank you for all the people that have stuck by me through this transition and really helped to propel MXV Rail to the organization that it is today, and that are going to continue to be a part of and be change agents for the evolution of our organization moving forward.
That was a great way to wrap things up. Thank you again so much for your time. And I'm going to quickly just close us off here with a few things that are upcoming with the League of Railway Women. Some in-person events that are happening. You can see a few of our members at SWARS in Galveston that's coming up. I think that's, let me look at my watch, tomorrow and Wednesday. And then at the end of this month, we have our What is Your Why Symposium in Kansas City. Please, if you are interested, visit leagueofrailwaywomen.org and check out some more information. It's going to be a great event, and we look forward to seeing everyone there. So thank you again, Kari. This was a great conversation. I'm so thankful that you agreed to give us your time today. And thank you to everyone who joined us, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.